Okay. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Singh. Welcome you once again to this 16th lecture of TW, 15th lecture of TW. And I would like to invite Dr. Sanjay Kumar Singh to continue his lecture. Dr. Singh, please.
Thank you. Namaskar to everyone. So before starting, if you have any question, you can ask. And then after that, I will start.
So question number 20, 22 and 23. You have to hint, sir, for these questions in exercise.
Okay. So what was the exercise? Can you recall or share? Because I don't have in this laptop.
Okay. I'm sharing now. Is it visible, sir?
Just
actually we might not consider 22 and 23.
Okay. Yes. So yes. So this 22 and 23, I can give reference because 22 needs some work. And it is related to the topic whatever I'm one way you can get a solution of this is using a group action, which I will do today.
Okay.
And I think after doing this it will be easy. And 23rd is very obvious. Why? Because we know that any isometry of R2 is nothing but of the type A coming by orthogonal matrix A and some translation vector W. So if we apply here on this P, if I calculate, suppose H is isometry, then what is a HP? Then automatically it will come directly, because we know isometry is sending any vertices to the vertices. So this set will go to the again the same set because S prime is same. So this P1, P2, Pn will permute. So isometry will basically permute these points P1, P2 and Pn. So I think you just put the value of H here and you will get directly that this HP is just a sum of HP1 plus HP2 HPn by n, and which is by definition centroid of this set S prime. But for 22, you need some more work, and one solution you can give using the group action, which I will just start today. And maybe I can give you a reference for this. You can see solution later.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Okay. So now I will share my slides and I will start completely new topics, which I am calling group action. But soon you will realize that it is not a new topic. You have seen the bigger picture of this topic before, that was equivalence relation. And in the case, group actions are the case of equivalence, the example of equivalence relation, and they are more useful in group theory. And of course, today I will also discuss some more application of them. And there are lot of example, and there are many theorems and result maybe which proof you already know, but they can also be proved using some techniques which we are going to discuss today. So now I will share my slide and start my presentation. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. So as my title says, group action and equivalence relation. So equivalence relation we have already seen, and I recall that relation is always same as giving a partition of any set. Suppose I gave you a set and I ask you some equivalence relation on this, then you can say, okay, if I give you a partition, then this is a equivalence relation. That's it. Now I will define a term called group action, and since we are working in a group theory, so that's why we want some special type of relation, and that is basically group action. So it is defined like that: let G be a group and S be a set, just a set. So I define a multiplication, and a multiplication, some typo is there, a multiplication of G on S as a map mu, which is a map from G cross S to S. And I will say that this map is nice. It means that it is a group action of G on S if it has these two properties. First property says that if I pick an identity element in G and I pick any element X in S, then its image should be just X. And if I pick two elements G1 and G2 in the group capital G, then the value of G1, G2, X should be the same as the value of G2X, and then taking again with G1. So it is a mu of G1 comma mu of G2 comma X. And what is a mu of G2 comma X? Because it is already an element of S, then this whatever I am saying makes sense. So if we have such these two property on such type of map mu, which is from G cross S to S, then we call them as a group action. I will give you example soon, but corresponding to any group action, I have some definitions, more definitions. And one notation is that sometimes in place of mu, I just write Gx. It means image of G comma X. Okay? So sometimes we use this notation just for simplification. So now some more definition. Let G be a group and S be a set, and mu is a group action. Again, typo is here. Mu G cross S to S be a group action. And we define orbit of this, for each point we define orbit of this action, and it is basically a set which has an element of the type mu Gx, or you can just simply write Gx, all element of the form this. So what it means suppose this is your set S, any set S, and you have a 1 point. So I know if I apply G on this point, then it will give me Gx will give me some another point Gx. So suppose Gx is this. So suppose your group is for simplicity finite right now for this example. So you can write element as a G1, G2, Gn. So suppose you apply G1, you come here, then you apply another element G2, maybe you can come here, and similarly like this. And you will continue. And there is also guarantee that you will come back. If group is finite, then you can easily see. So it is like making an orbit. So just the name is clear because you start from X, and by using element of G, you just continue, and there is a possibility that you can come back to the same point, and hence we call this set a subset of this S. So this is of course a subset of S as a orbit of X with respect to the group action of G on the set capital S. Now we define another element which I'm going to call as a stabilizer. So what is a stabilizer? It means all the stabilizer of any point of the set S is basically a subset of group G containing all those elements G such that mu of Gx is equal to x. It means if you apply G on this point, then you get same point. So in all elements which fixes this point x is called as a forms a set, and that set is called a stabilizer. And it is not very difficult to see that actually this subset is not just a subset. It is a subset of a group, and it is a nice subset in the sense that it is a subgroup of G, and which is very easy to check. And actually it is also called as a isotropy subgroup of X. In some books you can find this definition also. So now proof is very simple. It is already given. I will not go in that. Now another set I am defining called as a fixed point set. It is a subset of S which is fixed by the group G. So what it means? It means that all element in the set capital S such that mu of Gx is equals to x for every G. So all element X which is fixed by all element of G, they are called as a fixed point. And it is very easy to check that if I pick any element here in this set, then what is the orbit of this set? Orbit will be singleton. Why? Because orbit is the set of all element mu Gx. But if X is in this set, it means it is fixed by all G, and it means all mu Gx is equal to X, and hence the orbit is just singleton X. So this set is very important, and important in the sense that any element has orbit and it is just itself. There is no more than one element for in orbit of each element in the fixed point set. And there is another definition. We say an action is transitive if the orbit of any point is a whole set. It means what? It means that it means if you are in the set S and suppose you have a 2 point X and Y in the set, then S transitive means I can always find some G which can connect X to Y. So such type of actions are also very important, and we study them. So now in example we try to understand this. So let us take Rn. So for me this Rn is like this. This is, you can say, Rn. Of course picture wise it represents R3, but assume that it is Rn. Or you can take R3 and define action. So it is very not very difficult to check that this gives you an action, because if you take a lambda1 lambda2 of V, then it will be lambda1 lambda2 V, and it is also written as a lambda1 lambda2 V. So of course this gives you an action of R star on R3. Now I want to compute what is the orbit. So I want to compute orbit of any point in R3. So for example, if you take a 0, 0, 0. So what is orbit? So I denote it by orbit by R3. This is the notation for orbit. So it means it is all element of the type Gx. But here G is this group. So it will be all element of the type lambda x such that lambda belong in R star. But what is this? Since x is already 0, this is x which is 0, so it means it is just set 0, 0, 0. So the orbit of this point is always 0. Why? Because if you take a 0 and you apply any lambda, then lambda 0 is 0, and hence this point is not moving, and this is the one orbit. Fixed point also, and it is also orbit. Now, what is the stabilizer of this? So this is denoted as a R star 0, 0, 0 in my notation. So stabilizer means all those points in G which fixes this point, and it is very obvious to check that it is nothing but whole group. So whenever you have a fixed point, any element in the fixed point, you can also observe that if you have any element in this fixed point set X, then stabilizer is always full group. Stabilizer of any point of this is always a full group. And now I take a vector 0, 0, 1. So what are the stabilizer of this, orbit of this? So it means all vector of the type 0, 0, lambda, such that lambda is not equal to 0. So basically it is a z-axis and remove one point on this. And similarly, if you take any vector v which is not equal to 0, then orbit of this will be all line passing through 0 containing this vector v, and 0 is not there. So it means all vector of the type lambda v such that lambda is not equal to 0. This is the orbit of this point P. And in this case, what is a stabilizer? You will see that the stabilizer is nothing but 1. Why? Because if lambda v is equal to v, it forces that lambda should be. So now I gave you example where you saw that orbit can be singleton also, orbit can be a line, remove -1 origin, and the stabilizer group could be whole group or trivial. And now why these sections are important, we will see later. But yes, so before going to this, I want to put a remark, one more observation about the group action. That is another way of defining a group action. In some books you can find this definition also. So let AS denote the set of all bijective maps from S to itself. So you have already defined this set as a symmetry group. If you recall, I have defined what is called a symmetry group in first or second lecture. That is all bijective map from a given set to itself. And I know there are two ways of doing this. It is basically composition map, and how we take composition, that was also very important, and that's why we fixed notation in permutation group, and then we defined permutation. So now here also we fix one notation for the product in this set. Fg is equal to F composed with G, and with respect to this composition of map, this set is actually a group. And now suppose you have an action mu on the set S, an action of G on a set S, which is a mu G cross S to S. So for every G, I can always define a map where rho from capital G to AS is sending G to rho G. And what is rho G? So I'm saying I have an action, I can always define a map rho from G to AS. And what is this map? It is sending G to rho G, and where rho G is a map from S to S defined as this. And it is easy to check that actually this rho is a group homomorphism, and which is very obvious. So it means whenever you have a group action, I can always give you a group homomorphism of G2 inside the group AS. And similarly, vice versa, if you have any representation, such type of maps are called representation also. In some book they write like this. So if you have any group homomorphism rho from G to AS, then I can always construct a group action mu from G, group action of G on S, which is actually a map mu from G cross S to S, which is defined as mu of GS is same as is equals to rho G of S, where rho G is the image of G going to rho G, and rho G is an element here. It means it is a map from S to S, and hence I can compute the value of S under the map rho G, and which gives you an element of here, and thus I get a. And now it is not very difficult to check that actually this is a group X, and that's why the group homomorphism property helps you. Otherwise, you can define always map like this, but group homomorphism ensures you that this is a group action, and similarly, if it is a group action, then you get a group homomorphism. So there is another way of thinking as a group action also, but yes, right now forget it and come back to the some special remark which I started in beginning, that group action is actually an equivalence relation. And how I see this, let us go. So suppose G is a group which is acting on a set S. Now I am defining a relation sim on S, which relation is defined as like that. S is related to T, where S and T are the element of set capital S, and we say that they are related if there exists some G in capital G such that mu of GS is equals to T, which I write GS is equal to T. So now you can easily verify that actually because of group action property, this relation is an equivalence relation. So from this remark, I can say group action was nothing. It is just an equivalence relation which we have already studied. But important thing is that this is a very nice equivalence relation and coming using groups. So it is going to help me a lot to understand some more property and some more results in group theory. So okay. So far you have any question you can ask. So now I assume that group action definition is done completely. Yes. Any question? Yes. So if there is no question, then yes, yes, no question. Okay, good. So now come to the next part. So there are some exercise you can try. So there is something called Arbit stabilizer theorem, and it is very important theorem, and it also going to help you a lot. And now I will state what is this theorem, and I will try to use them, and I will give 1-2 application of this. So since you have seen that whenever I give you a group action, you get an equivalence relation. And what equivalence relation does? It give you a partition of the set. So theorem is here. Suppose G is a group. Suppose G is a group and which acts on a set S, then orbit of X partitions X. So these orbits are the basically equivalence classes. So corresponding to this relation. So these orbits are nothing but the equivalence classes, and you know in case of equivalence relation, equivalence classes were the partition of the set. So hence this orbits gives you a partition of that set, and the cardinality of this set is exactly the sum of the cardinality of these orbits. And now we have a very nice theorem because there is some relation between the stabilizer and orbit of a point. And what is this relation? Theorem is saying that if G is a group which acts on a set S and X be any point on the set capital S, then the element of the orbit OX are the 1-1 correspondence with the left cosets of the stabilizer Gx of X in G. And moreover, this cardinality of orbit is same as the cardinality of this number of left coset, and which you call them as an index of Gx inside G. Note that we don't know Gx is a normal or not, but we know it is a subgroup, and hence we can talk about the index of this subgroup. So now, how to prove this theorem? I will not prove completely. I will give you a sketch. So basically, you want to prove that two sets have the same cardinality. So if this is a problem of set theory, and whenever you want to prove that two sets has the same cardinality, what you give? You basically try to give a bijective map between these two sets. So I'm going to do same thing. I will say let P denote the set of all distinct Gx cosets in G, and now let Y be an element in orbit. Since it is in orbit, it means what? There exists some G such that I can write Y is equal to Gx. Now what I'm going to do? I'm going to define a map from this orbit to the set of all Gx coset of G. And what is this map? I'm sending any Y here to Gxy. Now, natural question is that what is a guarantee of uniqueness of this G? So there is no guarantee. So now we have to verify that if we change the choice of G, then still this map is well defined. And this we have already done in this next step. And after that, I will check that now I have a map. Now I will prove that actually this map is a bijective map, and we are done. And hence we can say that the cardinality of OX is same as the cardinality of this set P, and which is the index of Gx inside G. And as a corollary, I get immediately that if G is any finite group which acts on the set S, then the number of elements in any orbit OX must divide the order of the group. It means why? Because this is always true, and hence this will. So far, any question? So if there is no question, then let's move. So now, because of this nice theorem, we can see that this holds. So since I know G is acting on S, so I can partition the set S into orbits. And I know this is a basically union of all orbits. But there are some orbits which have only one element. And what are these orbits? These orbits is completely determined by the set, fixed point set SG. I made a remark that if you have any element here, then orbit of this element is always a singleton. So now how many element I get whose orbit is a singleton is completely this. So now I am writing this set S as a union of SG union all OX such that the orbit of OX has more than one number. So all those X in capital X such that the orbit has more than one element, and here one element. So I can write this set like this. And here this condition is coming because all those elements whose orbit has more than one element. So it means what? If orbit has a more than one element, I know the set of the number of element in orbit is same as the number of is same as the index of Gx. So if it is more than one, so it will be definitely greater than one. So I have just replaced that condition with this, and I can write this set as this. And suppose S is a finite set, or in general, if cardinality, you can talk in general. So cardinality is nothing but cardinality of S is nothing but cardinality of this set and cardinality of this set. And these, because they are disjoint sets, so I can just take their sum, and thus I get this nice expression. And of course, in case of infinite, it's not very useful, but in case of finite, it is definitely very is going to help a lot. So we'll discuss some application assuming that the set is finite, and we'll see the nice applications of this. So far, any question? No. So now we have defined group action. We connected with this as a group representation of G inside some set AS, and then I said this is the same as the equivalence relation, and it means it is same as a partition, and this means I have some nice results like that. So this is a nice observation on the set S such that G is acting on the set S. Now I will see application. Since we have already spent 2 days on understanding the symmetry and symmetry group of some objects. So now, since yesterday we have learned that the symmetry group of polygon is nothing but the dihedral group. And there I have used some another technique, but there I can also study them using group action. Now, how I am going to do? Let's see. So let ST denote the symmetry group of tetrahedron, and tetrahedron is this object. It is an object in R3 which has a 6 edges, and all edges are same, and it has a 4 faces, and all 4 faces are the basically equilateral triangles. So if I take 4 equilateral triangles, then whatever object I form, that is a tetrahedron, and it is one of the Platonic solids. So now what I'm going to do, I will represent this tetrahedron by T, and I will represent its vertices by the set VT. Suppose the set, I will represent this as a VT, the set of vertices of this, and I will call this set is just 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a vertex 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I already mentioned you that group action is same as the group homomorphism. So basically, now I have this set 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I am saying the symmetry group ST acts on this set. Means what? It takes any element here and send to another element in this set. So it means basically it is same as to saying that there exists a group homomorphism from ST to the symmetry group of this set. And what is the symmetry group of this set? It is a set with 4 elements. So all bijective map from the set of 4 element to 4 element, we have already defined them as a S4 permutation group of 4 symbols. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is of course this AVT. So now action means I got a group homomorphism from here to here. And what is this map? Basically, first I will define what is a map. It maps that if I take any isometry H here, then it goes to sigma H. And since sigma H is element of S4, so it means it is a map from set 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1, 2, 3, 4. And what it is doing? It is sending any I to HI. And what is HI? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 are the vertices, and we have already observed in last lecture that whenever I have isometry, then it sends vertices to the set of vertices. So this 1, 2, 3 will go to the set here, and that is my definition. Okay, so far any question here? So I'm saying that I can say that the symmetry group of tetrahedron acts on the set of vertices, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, and hence we have basically a map from ST to S. Any question? No. Then we can go to some observation. So of course I have written, of course, if you don't like this definition of action, then you can write it your usual definition of action. In that sense, this is a map mu, which is a from ST cross VT to VT, and it is sending any HI, where I is a vertex and H is an element isometry, to HI. Okay. Second observation, which I have already mentioned, that phi is actually group homomorphism, and both are equivalent. Group homomorphism is same as group action is same. Okay. Now, very important observation is that this is an exact injective map. How? Suppose phi t is not injective. It means what? It means that there exists some H, some isometry H here, such that its image is trivial. Because we have in group theory see that if kernel is non-trivial, it means map is not injective. If kernel is trivial, means map is injective. So let's kernel is non-trivial. It means there exists some H in ST such that phi H is equals to identity. But phi H is equal to identity means what? All HI is equals to I. And now it is easy to say that you are saying that all vertices 1 is going to 1, 2 is going to 2, 3 is going to 3, 4 is going to 4. Then I have already made a remark that if all vertices are going to same vertices, then this map will be identity. Why? Even now give a different proof. Suppose I have a 4 vector in R3. Now using these 4, I can construct 3 vectors, linearly independent vectors. Now all 3 linearly independent vectors are going to the same linearly independent vector. So now you have a linear map which is sending a same linear, because you have also checked that any isometry is of the form AV plus W, but in the case of finite or bounded shape, it is actually linear map and W factor is 0. So since it is a linear map sending 3 linearly independent vector to same 3 linearly independent vector, so it means it is actually a identity map. So there is another proof of the fact that if any isometry is sending vertices to the same vertices, it means it must be a identity isometry. And thus you have proved that kernel is actually trivial. So there is no non-zero element in this kernel, and hence it is a injective. So now what you have seen, actually, because this is an injective map, it means the symmetry group is a subgroup of S. Okay. Now I will try to compute the order of this group. So now observe something. It is easy to see that if I pick 2 vertices, then there exists isometry G in ST such that GI is equals to J. So of course, I can always find some isometry such that it sends any vertex here, any I vertex to some J vertex. And I will tell you more. So it means orbit of any vertex has exactly 4 elements, and which is a whole set of vertices. So orbit is 4. Cardinality of orbit is 4. So here is a small typo. And now I am going to compute the stabilizer. So let us come back here. Now I am going to compute the stabilizer of this point. So what is the stabilizer of this point? Means all isometry which fixes this. Suppose this point is fixed, then what are the possibility of all isometry? So what all isometry will do? All isometry can only change these 3 vertices. And it means basically all isometries of this equilateral triangle, and which is rotational because you cannot apply thrust. So it means that it will be exactly 3, and hence the stabilizer of any point has cardinality 3. Now I will apply my orbit stabilizer theorem. It says that the cardinality of the group is same as the index of this into sorry, index of the stabilizer subgroup inside ST is same as the number of element in orbit, and number of element in orbit is 4, and this is basically 3, so it will be ST divided by 3 is equals to 4. It means ST is 3 into 4. So here some things should be also written divided by this, because index of GH is same as order of G divided by order of H. So it means I got a subgroup ST inside S4 which has a which has a order 12, which has a order 12. And what is the order of S4? It is a 24. So what is the index of ST? It has a 2. And now it is also not very difficult to prove that any index 2 subgroup inside SN is only A4, and hence the symmetry group of tetrahedron is. So using the same idea, I can apply. Hello. I'm audible. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I really thought maybe something is wrong. Okay. So it means I have proved that the symmetry group of tetrahedron is nothing but A4. And same idea I can apply for other platonic solids. And we know at least 5, at most 5. We know exactly 5 platonic solids are there in R3. And I can apply same method, same idea, and we can easily compute the symmetry group of other platonic solids. So now you found one nice application of this. And if you see very carefully, then what I have done, I have shown that this symmetry group of this is exactly sitting inside this. So if you use this idea of group action, this fact, this group homomorphism idea, then you can also give you a different a proof of Cauchy's theorem, which says that if you have any group, then I can embed this group inside the symmetry group of itself. Or if you have any finite group, then you can embed this finite group inside a permutation group of order permutation group. Or just you can, if you have any group of order n, then I can always embed this group inside permutation group of n symbols. So yes, so now you have any question you can ask. So I have given you one application. Another application, because I already mentioned that it is giving you different proofs of already known theorems also. So now I am going to pick a very well-known theorem in group theory, which is called as a Cauchy's theorem. And theorem says that whenever P divides the order of a group, then there exists an element A inside the group such that the order of A is P. Who is not familiar with this theorem? If P divides the order of a group, then there exists an element A inside the group G such that order of A is equals to P. So that theorem is called as known as a Cauchy's theorem. Now I am going to give you a proof using the group action, and proof is not very difficult. So what I am going to do, so let G be a finite group and P be a prime. Now I am going to define an action of the cyclic group ZP on this set. What is this set? This is a P times product of G. So any element is of GP is just written as G1, G2, G. So now I am going to apply the action. So to apply the action, I have to tell what is the value of K, G1, G2, Gp, where K is an element of ZP. And now I have to tell. So what I am going to do, I am just making a cyclic shift. So suppose K is 1, then what will I do? I will shift G12 in place of G2 and G2 in place of G3, and Gp will come back to in place of G. So I am just making a cyclic shift. if I take k is equal to 2, then this, suppose you have this. So what I will do, I will shift G12 in place of G2. So it will be P minus 1, GP, G1. So I have shifted G1 2 more place, and so G1 will occupy the place of G3. So it is coming, and then this is. So using this cyclic shift, I can easily define action of ZP on the set GP. Now you consider this set S. This set is nothing but all element in GP with the property that if I take a product of them, then it should be the identity. First, my claim is that of course this set is non-empty. Why? Because if I take E1, E2, E1, 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 then of course product of this is. And actually this set has a cardinality more. And what is the cardinality? Cardinality is this. So observations. First, that the cardinality of this set S is exactly mod G power P minus 1. Why? Because I can choose G1, G2, G1, G2, GP minus 1 any arbitrary, and because of this relation GP is fixed, and GP is nothing but G1, G2, GP minus 1 inverse. So if I choose them arbitrary, then of course if this is GP, if I choose G1, G2, GP minus 1 arbitrary any value and define GP to be this, then of course this is an element of S, and any element is also of this type, coming like this. So thus the cardinality of this set is exactly the cardinality of this set is equals to this, not set, the cardinality of this is equals to this number, which is the cardinality of G power P minus 1. Okay. Second observation is there, that if you think this action of G on this set GP over S, then this set is invariant. So you don't need to take this set, you can exactly define the action of ZP on this set S directly. So basically I can define the action of ZP on this set S. Okay, so if I can do this, then another observation is that each ZP orbit in S has either cardinality 1 or P. Why? Because ZP has no subgroup. So if you pick any point S in capital S, then what will be GS? It will be subgroup of ZP. And ZP has no subgroup except trivial and ZP whole. So either this has a cardinality 1 or P. And if it has a cardinality 1, it means orbit has a cardinality P. And if this has a cardinality P, it means orbit has a cardinality 1. So we get these two choices. And because of these two choices, you can easily apply this orbit stabilizer formula and you will get this fact. This. And where is the number is the n is the number of all singleton orbits. Now any element of S by itself form an orbit if and only if it is of the form. So it means if orbit is singleton, it means what? It means the element should be of the type this. And if element is of the type this, it means G power P is equal to 1. And hence, this gives you a bijection between the set of all elements which has order P or G power P is equal to identity, and the orbits of between the elements of S whose orbit is singleton and the element whose power g power p is equal to. And now it is easy to check that n is always 1. Why? Because E is satisfying this condition. So orbit of E is always 1 because E power of P is 1. So it means this n is always greater than equals to 1. And now I know this P divides this set and P divides the difference of this. So it forces, because P divides mod G. So this implies P divides G power P minus 1. And also from here, P divides mod G power P minus 1 minus N. So this implies that P divides N. And N is also greater than equals to 1. We know that fact. So it means N should be at least P. And it means there are elements except identity which has this property. And it proves you that just here some typo. So put it here. So it proves you means there exists some G which is not identity such that G power P is equals to. So now I have proved a theorem, Cauchy's theorem, using the technique of group actions. Now there are many more examples, but yes, now today I have few more minutes to conclude my all lecture series. So now I am not going in anything. So now there are very nice applications of group action, and we study some special type of group action that is called as a conjugacy group action, and it is defined like that. If you take any group and take yes to be again same group, then each group acts on itself by this action. Send Gx to the Gx G inverse. Because G and X are the element in capital G, so this is the element of capital G, and it is not difficult to see that it is a group action. And with respect to this group action, if you compute orbits of any points, then they are just like this. All element of the type. So orbit of S is nothing but all element of the type Gx G inverse, which is basically, you can say, conjugacy class of X, which we have already used that. And now this stabilizer is nothing but the centralizer of the element X, which is all G such that Gx G inverse is equal to X, and it means all G such that Gx is equal to X. And similarly, you will see the fixed point set is nothing but the center of this group. So this orbit is whatever equation formula we got here. If we put values in this formula, then we get some nice equation like this. And this is actually equation is very famous and useful in many places, and we call them as a class equation for any finite group, and it is very useful. And now one application in group theory, you can say the main problem is to understand how two groups are different. What is the difference between two groups, or how to classify groups. So now it is of course very difficult to think this problem. To solve this problem, we have created another problem, and that problem is says that better to understand subgroups of any group and divide groups into small portions and study all subgroups, and not all, especially study simple groups, and then build up the study of any general group. And in this setup, to understand subgroups, this class equation helps us, and even this theorem, orbit stabilizer theorem, and some special type of group actions also helps us. And there are theorem. So in this direction, there is something called a Sallow's theorem, and which is helpful to understand the normal subgroup of any given group. And of course, I don't have too much time to say that, but I have kept them in my notes. And yes, so now I will end up my today's lecture. And if you have any question, you can ask.
Any question from participant side? Okay, I think no, sir. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for a wonderful and explanatory talk. Let us clap for Dr. Singh on behalf of all the participants and the whole TW team. I extend my sincere thanks to Dr. Sanjay Kumar Singh for sharing his valuable and extraordinary talk. We all have enjoyed very well, and we have enlightened with your expertise and knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Because today I thought I will finish before 1 hour. Actually, our plan was to just give lectures and whatever, finish our lectures before 15 minutes. But every time we always take 1 hour. So this time we have decided, okay, I have decided that I will finish before 1 hour. And there is no point of doing many things, but I tried to give many ideas and like a group theory idea and also some results about the permutation application of permutation groups and other things. So hopefully it will help you to it will motivate you to study more in group theory, and of course I assume that it will help you to teach a group theory course in more different way. I hope.
Thank you.
And if anyone is interested, you are welcome, and you can send me an email or you can contact me, and we can also learn or discuss more mathematics in future.
Thank you. Of course, you have considered every part. Not even a single part is untouchable. You have considered almost every part of the group theory. And
yes, I think this is a first. This all topics could be the one group theory course, basic group theory course.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, thank you all. We will meet tomorrow. We will meet in the next week on Friday for the upcoming lectures of Dr. Siddharth Sarkar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.